call the meeting to order and declare the meeting open at 7 o'clock. And it's a council meeting including policy committee meetings of the 2nd of April 2019. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. First of all, part one, apologies for absence. An apology from Councillor Whitten. Someone move that. Councillor Hamling, second. Councillor Munro. All in favour? Thank you. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative purposes. I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri Nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflict of interest in any matter for consideration at the council meeting? Councillor Maletta.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just two items which I would consider to be less significant, non-procure interest. Item 2.1, Sport and Rec Policy Committee, Action Plan item number 2.1. I note that the council or the action plan considers a budget of $60,000 for playground equipment on the Huntley Road side of Jack Brabham Park. I'd just like to declare that I'm the president of the Orange District Football Association and I'd like to stay for that discussion if that's possible. Second conflict of interest I consider to be less than significant non-pecuniary interest is regarding Finance Policy Committee item 3.1, request for financial assistance, recommendation number 4, and that is with regards to monies or a donation of $1,760 being made to the Orange Aboriginal Medical Service, being the donation for the emergent funding for the purchase of rainwater tank to support the project of building a better Tucker Garden. I'm currently a member of the Kunagabia, which is an Aboriginal men's health group, and that is closely associated with OHMS. So I'd just like to declare an interest there.
Councillor Miletto. Any others? Late items. We have one late item there, which is 4.3, notice of motion. Notice of motion, cost estimate, Parks and Gardens upgrade. Someone move that
yep, happy to move
included.
Second.
All in favour? Excuse me. There are no mayoral minutes, and the council meeting adjourns to the conduct of the open forum. We have no speakers. Hold it, we do. We have one speaker, Cyril Smith.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. Hopefully I won't talk too long tonight. I have written to Council and Councillors last Monday a week ago, and so you should have some information before you. If not, it should be there very shortly. I'd like to talk on water restrictions and water. Now, I must congratulate you as Councillors for considering handheld hose use during the water restrictions. As far as I know, most councils don't have restrictions on handheld hoses, and I would like to see possibly an amendment to the motion that's put forward tonight to simply state that handheld hoses can be used during the period from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Now, the very few people that are going to be out sort of holding a hose in these cooler afternoons, particularly when it's going to be getting dark shortly at 7 o'clock. The water used by handheld hose would be very, very low. And so there won't be any major use of water by handheld hoses. I'd like you to consider that when you're discussing it tonight. The other important thing I was thinking of is that with the introduction, the operation of the pipeline, the stormwater harvesting, bores, and the upgrade storage area of Suma Park Dam, have the water restriction criteria been revised to reflect this new security in water that we do have? That is another one that you may be able to answer for the community. Because as far as I know is that the existing criteria for water restrictions reflect the whole situation that we had where we completely relied on inflows to our dams. I think it would be worthwhile for councillors to go back and have a look at a water strategy that was put forward in the 2nd of December meeting, late item 4. I couldn't retrieve it electronically over the weekend because on our website it only goes, meetings go back to 2014. Now in that, it showed that the use of the stormwater harvesting would more than meet.
Mr. Smith, can I just ask you a question? You said late item number 4, 2nd of December, what year?
2012.
2012.
So in that report, it clearly showed that the stormwater harvesting system actually meet Orange's water requirements. That was for the secure yield for the Blackman Swamp and Ploughman's Creek stormwater harvesting systems. So it may be worthwhile for the existing councillors in 2012 to go back and reacquaint themselves with that. And the new councillors, it may be worthwhile for you to get some background. Now, this fact was virtually validated by our previous mayor by an article in the CWD, 4th of July 2015, when he stated that on many occasions the stormwater harvesting system could supply a lot of water for Orange. I would ask Council in the upcoming budget to consider extending the stormwater harvesting to secure more water for Orange. Now there are new suburbs going in by subdivisions, 386 Mile Long Road. There's going to be a lot of houses going in there generating a lot of stormwater. And in the next couple of years, we would expect that the Emmerdowne Estate, just over the other side of Ploughman's Creek, to come online. So it may be worthwhile to consider additional stormwater harvesting on Ploughman's Creek below Emmerdowne Estate. So it may mean sort of starting to think about setting aside funds in this upcoming budget so we're not left behind. It's forward planning, so I'd ask you to consider that. The other means by which we could sort of secure more water for Orange is by the use of rainwater tanks. We've got a lot of new houses going in at the moment. We're in a boom period. But I think council should be encouraging people to put in rain tanks. Now, personally, I have rain tanks at home and I'm virtually self-sufficient in water because I use that for watering the lawn, the garden, and flushing the toilets. Now you can see that from what I've read, about 40 to 50% of water use in the household is on gardens and things like that outside, and about 20% is used for flushing toilets. So you have something like 60% of water use in a household that could be covered by rainwater tanks attached to that house. So it will sort of decrease the demand for
Smith,
future water
we're
use.
right on that 5 minutes.
And I would
They'll need an extension.
Give me extension.
Councillor Munro, seconded Councillor Duffy. All in favour?
I would suggest that Council consider in the new LEP and DCPs, make it mandatory that new houses have some sort of rainwater storage. In the interim, I would suggest that Council consider make an amendment to the LEP to that effect, so we don't have to wait. Thanks very much for listening.
Thanks, Mr Smith.
Mayor, just on that point, isn't that already in place with, is it Matrix, whatever?
Basics.
Basics,
yeah.
Yeah, that's in place already, isn't it?
I suggest.
Councillor Milletta.
No, I was just going to touch on the same point as Councillor Taylor, that I thought that was already in place.
Councillor Munro.
I'd just like to thank Cyril for his input, because he's here every week and he's a great citizen of Orange, I think, because he cares. He's very passionate. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, could I just ask a question about the Blackman Swamp harvesting? What percentage of water can we take at the moment before we've got to let natural stuff go down?
Second stage.
But if my memory serves correct, to get that yield, it was an absolute. It was very hard to do with the licensing and the EPA and all that sort of thing. Correct?
I could talk at length, and I have met Mr Smith just recently before he's written into council, and debated a number of those points. I won't go into those debates tonight, but happy to circulate a response in regard to them.
Can I just suggest, I was going to ask some questions there tonight. Perhaps down the track a little bit, it would be a good time to get a summary from the Director, water sources, what a sustainable yield is. We've got a new council, may not understand what the sustainable yield is. Our average yearly consumption in a normal year, winter consumption versus summer consumption, household consumption versus per person consumption. That help everyone? I think it would, because it changes a bit. Yeah, so if we get the Director to get something together for us, rather than I think we can have a lot of debate and perhaps we're not quite sure of our facts. Thank you. Right. 3.1 is confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Orange City Council held on the 19th of March.
Yeah, move the...
It's Councillor Nugent, second Councillor Munro. All in favour?
Aye.
Council meeting adjourns now for the conduct of the policy committees, and first of all, Planning and Development Policy Committee. I'd invite Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. With pleasure, I open the Planning and Development Committee meeting at 7:15. We only have one apology, Councillor Whitton. Up to this point, we have no conflicts of interest. There is still none. We open with 2.1, items approved under the delegated authority of Council. Been moved, Councillor Duffy, seconded Councillor Kidd. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 2, development application 4617 Mitchell Highway, Lucknow.
To move it, Mr Chairman.
So Duffy, seconded Councillor Munro. I might be like a lot of us, didn't even know there was a motel there, but then I find that it's got 3 rooms. So. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried.
Sorry.
Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Look, just acknowledging the author, who appears to be a student planner, and it's great to see the young generations coming through the workforce of Orange City Council, with Sophie Carenti being the author of that report.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Just a matter, Mr Chairman, on planning, asking if staff could ensure that when the DA is received from Housing Plus over Lantana Place, that we do cover the neighbourhood with the normal letters and notifications. If we could spread those at least a reasonable distance around. I attended a meeting there last night, which was in CWD on Saturday, and there was concern about the process and what process will need to be followed. And I said, well, council will notify by mail, but I'm asking if, or please, ensure we cover a reasonable distance, just the immediate neighbour.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, just a matter of rising, Mr Chairman. I'm just listening to the Director. I'm just wondering where we're up to with our pound. We had a report came to council, nothing happened for some time.
Mr Waddell.
Is there money allocated in the budget?
Today was the tender briefing for people seeking to build the pound. We had a good show today, so that tender closes on Monday. We'll assess that and bring that back to council with a view to starting within weeks after that. As you know, the site's secured at 36 Astle Drive and we're raring to go.
The only reason why I asked that, like I received a phone call, and that's probably other councillors did too, as regards to some dogs being brutally hurt some weeks ago. So I don't know whether that was the case or not.
Current services, Mr Chair, are through the Forest Road Cattery Veterinary Hospital.
They were?
Further questions? That closes the Planning and Development Committee, and call on Councillor Miletto to conduct the Employment and Economic Development Committee.
Get your 5 points.
Yeah, nah.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. The time being now 7:18 p.m. Declare the Employment and Economic Development Policy Committee meeting now open. Declarations of peculiar interest, significant non-peculiar interest, and less than significant non-peculiar interest. Are there any? There being none, we'll move to item number 2, being the committee meeting.
I'll move that.
Second.
One.
Thank you. The recommendation being council acknowledge reports presented to the Economic Development Unity Committee at its meeting held on the 6th of March 2019, and that the minutes be adopted. Moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by
Munro.
Councillor Munro. Any discussion? There being no discussion, we will close the meeting at...
Motion.
Apologies. Thank you for that, Councillor Hamling. Okay. Put the motion forward. All those in favour?
Just a matter arising. It's closely related. Look, in the last 10 days, I've read two different. One was called Gert, and the other one is called Gert by Sea, by an Australian historian. Both of those books, same thing comes up. Australia's first payable gold was found just outside of Bathurst. I guarantee you that OFA a lot closer to Orange than it is Bathurst. In that same year that they found the first payable gold at Ophir, only a few months later they found gold at Lucknow, which became beef gold, productive mine in the world. So I think somewhere I'd like to council write, or I don't know who we write to, or whatever, and make the point that in reality the first gold was found here. Quite significant when people are tourists or whatever they may be. Quite sure if they said that the first bloke who walked on the moon, Freddie Smith, there'd be an uproar. No, it wasn't. Okay, so the first gold wasn't found near. They did find gold near Bathurst, but 1 and 2 years later, after they found the gold at Ophir and at...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Time now being 7.
Point of order, I don't think we actually had the for and the against for that motion.
Apologies, I
moved it.
Thank you for that. All in favour, show of hands, please. Carried.
Unanimous.
Again against? That's why you're the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Romano.
You don't have to have a show of hands in these ones. It's only planning.
Learning all the time.
We'd already moved and seconded Councillor Craig.
Well, I thought that was the case, but
didn't pick her up on it.
Did I?
Yeah, we did.
I did.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I bet it is.
No, it's all good.
Oh, geez.
I'd like to call the Chair of the Infrastructure Committee, Councillor Romano.
Beautiful water.
Don't put the mic on.
Thank you, Councillor Miletto. The time being 7:22, I'd like to open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting, 2nd of April. Any councillor have a pecuniary interest, non-pecuniary interest or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? If not, I'll move on to Section 2, the committee minutes. Item 2.1, the Airport Community Committee meeting. Moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Did you want to speak?
Yeah, I just want to ask a couple of questions, if that's all right.
Councillor Hamling.
Just where it says general business, does that discussion come, like, it says there discussion, is that in, what's the outcome of the discussion? As the question is. Number 4, page 7.
7.
The two I'm interested in is the signage at the airport, which I think is, I think the more signage out there welcoming people to Orange would be sensational. And the other one was the farming airside, the Haymarket. I asked that question 4 or 5 months ago about whether we were able to do that. I just want to know what the go is for all this discussion.
I'll take them on notice for me, but I will respond within the week.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
I just want, does this come back in the next report saying what the outcomes were of the discussion, or is it just for discussion in the committee?
For noting by the staff to action where they see fit, but I presume that.
Well, I reckon the signage is pretty important, because I think it's great to welcome people who haven't been to Orange before. Significant signing, and obviously the haymaking, especially where we're in the middle of a drought. If we've got spare land out there where we could do some feed or some fodder or something, or I think that'd be a great idea.
Okay, well, that was in item 3, I think, Councillor Hamling. We may go back to item 2.1 and the council.
Sorry.
Yeah, we have a mover and a seconder.
That's the airport committee meeting.
Yeah. Any further discussion on this item?
Yeah.
Yep, Councillor Kidd.
I've just got a question. Is security cameras going to go in this year's budget?
Talking at the airport or more generally?
Sorry, at the airport, yeah. The car park.
We have existing security cameras out there. We have also an ongoing application with Resources for Regions for an upgrade of the car park and security cameras as part of that application.
What sort of area does the cameras cover at the moment?
I'm not keen to advise at this point in time, other than they have been supplemented with police cameras, and that the initial break-ins at the airport with vehicles, arrests and charges have been laid.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. The only reason I asked that, I've been out there quite a bit in the last couple of months, and if you have a look at the figures in here tonight, actually airport numbers are up, particularly with corporate air too. There was a group of 32 flying to King Island last week going from Orange. But I've noticed in the car park, look at this western end, a lot of cars actually park as you come in and under the trees. I just wondered, I think, I could be wrong, Councillor Mileto might be able to tell me. I had a look at the cameras and I thought the camera, I was only picking up that immediate area in front of the terminal, you know, where you go into walk in,
yeah,
where you come out. It didn't seem to look as though it was going that way and down the end towards where Orange Aero Club is. But
You, Mr. Chair, if you allow me to just explain, in your absence, time when I was acting chair, that issue was discussed, as was some of these other discussion topics which has been raised by Councillor Hamling. All those discussions are contained within the action plan, and which has been updated and will be available as indicated. With regards to the security cameras, it has been identified that there is one area, which I won't indicate where it is, which requires attention. That is come to the attention of Mooney, and the airport committee have asked that when those funds are made available, that a camera is installed in that area, which I referred to, and we're told that that will occur, but there is one area which isn't covered. But I'm not prepared to disclose where that area is for obvious reasons, but it is being addressed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mileto. Any further discussion? Item? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Moving on to item 2.2, minutes of the City of Orange Traffic Committee meeting held on the 12th of March. The recommendation on page 51, councillors. Moved by Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any discussion? No discussion, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just a matter arising of the minor traffic issue, Mr. Chairman. Woodward Street, the butcher shop there, there's a lot of cars that are parking there, apparently parallel, and it's angle parking, causing some of the neighbours there some problems as far as accessing their driveways. I went up and had a look on and with it, so I wonder if we could arrange to put new signs there.
Certainly.
Is there? Do we have to stick to that particular design?
Evers contemporary.
The signs are standard RMS signs generally, and they follow a standard format. If there's ever ones that are old and illegible,
legible, yeah.
Yeah, if they're illegible, then we certainly get them replaced.
Green coloured one.
Yeah.
Probably it's way overdue to be replaced. Asked that we.
If it's a parking across the driveway, I can actually mark the driveway as well.
Okay, well that'd be good if you could.
Yeah.
I mean.
That doesn't have to go through the traffic committee.
No, southern side. Driveways on the southern side, immediate.
Certainly. Thank you very much for bringing it to my attention.
Councillor Turner.
I was just going to say, Mr Chairman, I'll raise it at the Traffic Committee next Tuesday. And the traffic officer to have a look at it and see what may be done, yeah. Because there's obviously extra traffic there now with the coffee shop, people coming in and out, and the usual story like we had with Byng Street, I'm only here for 5 minutes and that sort of thing, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Miletto.
Thank you. Just leading on from what Councillor Taylor said, it was just by coincidence that I was contacted by a resident in the area also who was had some concerns with regards to some potholes out the front of those residents in Woodward Street on the eastern side. So if we could have a look at, when the opportunity rises, just to have a look at those. He was concerned about the depth of some of the potholes. Thank you.
Potholes on Woodward Street?
Yes.
Yeah. Councillor Privatera, I'll come back to you. Councillor Nugent, I thought...
Chairman, last year I made an inquiry to the Traffic Committee about the temporary guardrail set up at opposite at Wentworth Golf Club, opposite the nurse home. I was just wondering where that was up to.
Opposite where?
Wentworth Golf Club.
Opposite golf class.
Yeah, I do recall you mentioning that. Where are we up to with that?
Apologies that I haven't responded on that, but through the chair, if I may now, just to give all of council an update, those works that were done there with the retaining wall that's supporting the road there were inadvertently placed in the wrong position under contract. That contractor left without finishing the works. Council have made the area safe by putting some temporary barriers in place, and when we have more funds for that section of road, we'll certainly look at making a permanent fix along there.
And I think I raised
Councillor Nugent, Duffy, I'll just take Councillor Nugent first. He's been waiting.
Thanks, Mr Chair. Look, just really following on from what Councillor Taylor has said, and just living sort of diagonally across from that point, it is a very busy area, and I would certainly support that marking of that area. But also following on from that, in terms of, it's my understanding that if otherwise marked, it's parallel parking. Is that correct? Like, unless it's otherwise marked, it should be parallel parking. Because there seems to be a lot of confusion about that right across the board. We have people parking outside our place, sort of rear to the curb, 45 degrees, and sometimes it can be problematic getting out of your driveway. So, is that ever enforced? I guess is the question, and is that the correct interpretation of the law?
Okay, it is a technical interpretation of the law, and you are correct that the default position is, if it isn't marked or signposted, so it's either or, then the default position is to parallel park. That being said, we have a number of residential streets that are quite wide that do not have them in there. I don't believe the parking officers would unduly fine someone for parking rear to the curb where there's quite substantial road width in place. But they could.
They could.
Technically, they could. Yes.
Thank you.
Duffy, did you want
Yes, thank you, Mr Chairman. My question goes back to what Councillor Romano was talking about. I think on 23rd of August 2016. I asked a question as regards to...
Councillor Duffy, you referred to Councillor Romano. Was it Romano, me, or...?
Look, it's full of O's over there, so... my question goes back to, I think where the bollards are, there's supposed to be a footpath there. Have a report come back just to the council as to what is actually going to happen there, because the residents themselves are looking for a footpath to go there, which was promised in the first place.
Certainly can. It'd be unusual that the footpath would be on the opposite side to the residents.
Yeah.
So I would find that unusual if it is the case, but I'm happy to look into it and see what was originally supposed to be there.
Can I just bring up, just before I deal with the signs, that is incorrect. When those units was built out there, and it's that time after completion, they've in seeking support from the council to do a footpath western side where the units are, not on the side of it. Because if you put a footpath Gold Coast side of it, there's not much land there, and if you happen to miss a footpath, you'd end up on the first airway. Just on the other thing on signage, do we periodically go around all the signs in Orange? If you go around at the moment, there's a lot of signs that are either bending right over, people have run into them, or vandals have wrecked them. There's other signs where they've been bent and it's pointing the wrong way. There are some places where it says go up Anson Street and it's pointing the opposite direction from Anson Street. I've noticed on some of the roundabouts, you know, it might have one side of it, Margaret Street or whatever it is, and some of them have been run into by a truck and they're just flattened, but they've been flattened for a while. Do we have a regular going around and checking them out? Because I've had two people that contacted me, but they went along and paid the fine. They went to the movies down here at the Odeon. They parked down there. They were telling me that I went down and had a look. There is one part down there near the Odeon Theatre where there is a sign that goes up in the tree and it's got no parking. You can't see the sign. There's parking along to it, but for some reason I think it's no parking close to the driveway going in, and they'll be there, but you can't see it. Cars will be parked up and you think it's all right to park, so it looks like there's 2 parking spots there, but in fact there's a no parking, but it's free.
Yeah, I imagine it still starts from the footpath rather than being in the tree, and the car would have had to be aware of what obstacles were on the footpath, whether they be signage or trees, and so therefore, even if it was slightly obscured, I don't think that's an excuse to be parking illegally beyond where the signpost was.
No, but if you go down there,
but back to your first question, we certainly do a tour around on the signage, and we're also happy to take individual requests as well.
Councillor McRae, everybody else has had something to say.
I just wanted to commend, thank you, Mr. Greenham, for mentioning that, through you, Mr. Chair, the staff who do go and attend to the signs. I had cause in January to report signs that were pretty much invisible. They were blank. They were so old and faded you couldn't tell what they said. I popped into council, as I tend to do week to week, and I had a lovely chat with our customer service team. And they filled in some report thing on the computer, and the next day at 8:30 in the morning, those signs were replaced. I thought that was outstanding service. I'm sure that we can't expect a 24-hour turnaround for every project within the council, even if it is councillors who report it. But I must say that I was very impressed with their happy, jovial attention to the detail, and they did the job with a smile on their face. So commend you on the sign team that you have with you, Mr. Greenham.
Thank you, Councillor McRae.
Very good.
I just want to follow up on that one there. I think other councillors have probably been to the staff and nothing's ever happened. I mean, I think we spoke about parking with that one that Councillor Kidd mentioned down at Kennedy Port. I've spoken with staff about that one there, or because people have been booked and they can't see the signs. But we've also mentioned through the traffic committee as well, as regards to the DA down in Bing Street, the cafe down there. There's a parking there that was supposed to be moved out of the way there, one which comes on the southern side of the tree needs to be taken away and the sign needs to go there. I wonder whether we could look at those again.
Happy to look
Unless
into
there's
it.
favouritism towards councillors, I don't know.
None at all. None at all.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. You can't say that, can you?
You'd have to retract that, Councillor Duffy.
I'll retract that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, can we move forward, please?
Happy.
Right, we move on to Section 3, General Reports. Item 3.1, Current Works. On page 79, I have a mover. Councillor Taylor moved, seconded by Councillor Nugent.
Look, can I just say, well, I will. Congratulations to all the staff on that roundabout up there. That work up there is going ahead tremendously well, tremendously fast. We've had a good run of weather, but a very, very, very busy intersection. And it is interesting talking to a lot of people. They appreciate that the about's going to go in there, so they're putting up with inconvenience at the moment of coming down to one lane. But it really does show you, with bringing it down to one lane, how busy that intersection and what a big difference it's going to actually make, that roundabout.
Great.
Particularly for the people that use Elephant Park.
Councillor Miletto.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was down at the Elephant Park fetching the hamstrings the other day, and I was approached by a couple of people who commented on just how well it did look. The question they had was, is there any proposed finish date for that roundabout?
I'll have to take it on notice, but certainly within the week I'll respond. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Nugent.
Just a quick one to follow up on Mr Smith's presentation earlier. I know we're getting a report on some of the issues raised there. I just note that in terms of the stormwater so far this financial year, we've had 504 megalitres from stormwater harvesting, which is actually equivalent of 1 month, by my calculations, 1 month's sort of usage. So yeah, the stormwater certainly does contribute significantly to the raw water supplies of Orange, which is fantastic. I would also like to see the stormwater harvesting scheme eventually over time, subject to budget allowances, to be expanded, especially as we have more hard surfaces, as Mr Smith indicated. I do have some concerns about, and in terms of mandating rainwater tanks, I don't think that's not something that is currently covered by basics. Yes, you can, and I might ask the director, Mr Waddell, to just clarify that can count towards your basics requirements, but it's not a mandatory thing to have under the basics legislation. If you're
through Mr Chair, that's correct. The basics scheme requires you to get a certain number of points.
Yeah.
A water tank could contribute to those points, so could solar panels or solar hot water, etc., etc. So you don't strictly need under basics a water tank.
The other thing about a water tank is that the water tank is capturing water that would otherwise be going into the stormwater harvesting. So, you know, you've got that trade-off, and I think I'd like to see the report that comes back to council. I'm sure it will address all of those issues.
Thank you.
Councillor Miletto.
Just in regards to the water tanks, is there any regulations in place to test the water in those tanks? The reason I ask is because we live in an area where there's a lot of orchards where they're spraying from different type of diseases, pesticides, and I'm just wondering, we do get a lot of drift, which then settles on the roof, and when it rains, it goes into the water tanks. I'm just wondering, is there any mechanism in place to test the water to make sure it's safe for human consumption?
There is.
Yeah, I don't know the answer, Mr Chair.
So the Department of Health tends to regulate the non-reticulated supply of water. They provide information to residents with water tanks for human consumption. Most of the ones you find in town will be for use on the gardens as an alternate water source. For our rural people, refer to the fact sheets and the testing and all that sort of thing that's controlled by the Department of Health.
Thank you.
It's the night everyone's asking questions.
Meetings.
Cargo Road. From 1973 till 1998, I don't know how many thousand times we went out on the Cargo Road when we had the property out at Cargo. And on occasions when we had social events here in Orange, usually at the, as it was the Amico Hall in those days and the function centre, we couldn't get home on 3 occasions at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning because of snowfalls going up the Little Pinch towards Whitten Place. In case we come back to usual snowfalls that we used to get, has any consideration been given to the surface on that Little Pinch going up over towards Whitten Place? But that aside, I didn't think I would ever see Cargo Road curbed and gutted. I know it's only going to the top of the pinch, but I didn't think I'd ever see that. But has any consideration been given to that rare occasion when we get enough snow that Little Pinch is nearly impassable?
Yeah, certainly not to my knowledge was it a design consideration as such. However, the design has taken into account that, so it will be finished with an asphalt surface eventually, and with that you will have better traction on the road as well. So a bit of, and the slopes have been adjusted through there with the design to improve that access. But there'll still be a pinch there, absolutely.
I think it might help to
Mr. Chairman, may I
Councillor Turner forgets the car he had.
Director for a very thought out answer to a question he didn't think he was going to get tonight.
Yeah. There's a compliment too. That Cargo Road, it's amazing. It looks fantastic. But Councillor Turner, we've got modern cars these days. I don't know what you were driving not to be able to get up that hill.
Trusty old Fairlane in those days, Mr. Chairman.
Trusty old Fairlane, yeah. Top of the line.
If there's no any further discussion on this item, if not, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. That concludes the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting. The time being about 7:45. And I'll call on Councillor Hamling for the Sports and Rec Policy Committee.
Thanks, Councillor Romano. I'll open the Sports and Recreation Policy Committee meeting at 7:46. As there's no declarations of interest, I'll straight on the committee meetings. Item 2.1, minutes of the Australia. Moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion?
Just one. Look, can I move a vote of thanks to Councillor Turner, who's been on that committee for a number of years. Great committee to be on, a very hard-working committee and a lot of work on it. And I would encourage any councillor to put their hand up. We're one person down now on that Australia Day committee, so please give it consideration. Meet month, or times in late December and January, and then of course there's quite a few days of activity around 25th of January and the 26th of January in particular.
Any other speakers? I'll put the meetings. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. I'll move on to item 2.2, page 15.
Moved.
Minutes of the Sport and Recreation Committee meeting. Moved by Councillor Romano, seconded by Councillor Nugent. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question goes back to, I think, about 3.1, this Orange Regional Sporting Precinct. I'm just wondering whether we can all be emailed a copy of the details of what that's all about. But because of the election and the great win had by the Conservative government and that, we've been promised $25 million.
Great news, isn't it?
Right?
Great news.
Yeah, I mean, we should be getting it soon. And I just wonder, can we get the plans and those things sent to us?
There were the copy of the plans were available. We had a you can get them. I'm not saying, but there were a copy of the plans at a briefing session we had, if I'm correct, and then at that meeting the plans were out and about. So there's no problem.
Can we get them emailed to us?
Not a problem, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Councillor Hamling. Just with regards to Jack Brabham Park, and I know I've declared a conflict of interest being president of the Orange District Football Association. One thing which I often see out of Jack Brabham Park is the lack of water facilities for young children to fill up their water bottles and stuff. I often see them going to those outdated toilets, which is probably not the most hygienic thing I ever see, filling out their water bottles. I'm just wondering whether there's any opportunity to install some water bubblers out at Jack Park, because we get a lot of people out there, walkers, things like that. And I think it'd certainly be beneficial for those who want to exercise, especially the kids.
Yeah, Ms. Miletto, I'd move that you try and incorporate that into the budget. I'd support that totally, because lots and lots of kids out there, and you're quite correct. I've been out there and seen them filling up the water bottles. I think that'd be something that we'd all support.
The General Manager wants to say something?
Yeah, can we take that on notice and pull it into the budget discussions? Because historically there's been lots of hygiene issues with bubblers, so you're going to be better off with a water refilling rather than bubblers.
Yeah, the one at the post office.
Yep. Might be as good as that, but something like that.
Sort of thing, yeah.
Any other discussion? No other discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. I'll shut the meeting at 7:50 and call on Councillor McRae.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hamling. I'd like to open the Finance Policy Committee meeting of the 2nd of April with the time being 7:51 p.m. Note the apology from Councillor Whitten. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting?
Oh, sorry, Councillor McRae. I do have an interest, but I don't think it's really significant. Just with the approval of the $600 in-kind donation to Orange City Rugby Club, I coach Orange City under 11, so I just want to make that clear.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hamling.
4 kids.
Declared a conflict of interest non-significant with regards to item number 4, the donation.
Order. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Councillor Miletto. I think you had the floor.
That's fine. Declared a conflict of interest less than significant with regards to recommendation number 4.
Thank you. Okay, now we start off with, I think, the highlight of the year, the minutes of the Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting. Now, often these sections of the Finance Committee meeting of this council go very, very quickly. I think last time we took 1 minute to do the business of my meeting. Well, today is not going to be that day. We have Councillor Kidd, you've moved the report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Hamling. Now, I would actually like to note a couple of the key components of the AMRC annual report. I'm sure everybody has read it in detail. However, some of the key things, particularly of relevance to Orange. Firstly, is that Dubbo has concluded its position with the Bathurst Orange Dubbo Alliance as of the end of last year. So our auditing services are now shared across the 2 councils. There is also a number of items which are of attention in the overall report, particularly for future awareness for fraud and corruption. One of them is the credit card policy and transactions and policies there. And secondly, the emerging fraud and corruption risks in information technology. So they will be issues that the Audit and Risk Management Committee would continue to focus on, but it appears to be something that is statewide, so please don't think it's particular to Orange. These are matters that the Audit Office New South Wales brings to the attention of the committee. I'll ask the General Manager, is there anything you would like to add on that?
I think drawing from the annual report, the purpose of the committee is to give council greater assurance with some of our processes and our process improvement. In any number of locations through that report that the Audit and Risk Management Committee is quite satisfied with our responses to issues and where we're heading. I don't know, management responses, item 5.6 or in the conclusions. So I think that's you, councillors, when they see the body of work that the Audit and Risk Management Committee undertakes, see that independent affirmation that would give you greater confidence around the processes that are being checked.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. I'd also like to acknowledge the work of Phil Burgett, who's the chair of that committee, and Bill Galuli AM, who are the nominated representatives, and particularly the council staff. The Audit and Risk Management Committee actually go on a tour of various sites, particularly those that are identified as areas of risk for council. And funnily enough, we actually visited the stormwater harvesting scheme, visiting a number of sites along the way to look at the infrastructure and the risks and to really discuss with the relevant staff what the Audit and Risk Management Committee need to know in relation to those major parts of the council operations. So thank you to those staff involved as well. I will now, if there's any further discussion, if anybody else would like to make comment on the Audit and Risk Management.
Comment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Which I think is very, very important, that all councillors are invited if they'd like to come along to meetings. I think in particular, years to come, if you're aspiring to stay on council, and I think it would be worthwhile to going to one or two of these meetings, actually looking at the range of issues that actually looked at through the Audit and Risk Management Committee. So Councillor McRae said it's a hell of a lot of work. It covers an incredible amount of areas. Most people don't know that we have a designated staff person in council here that's paid a different way that looks after just this, and that's Shambria. And most people here would not know who he is. It's going to be valuable one night have him here for 5 minutes to produce. They know who he is, a lovely man, takes a job very, very serious. I think the other thing is to point out too under this minute is that the checks and balances that go through there. Last meeting, we were in a teleconference with the Department of
Auditor General.
The Auditor General's. Do it differently with councils now. Quite interesting, and that we came out of it very, very well. Exceptionally well. Don't forget, auditors, they always find something. They have to. I'd feel guilty sending you a bill. But ours was exceptional. And as I said, look, it is good. Dubbo chose. I thought it was a crazy thing that they actually did. Bathurst and Orange there. Bill Gahuli, for those who don't know, Bill Gahuli was the director or general manager, whatever called, of the Department of Local Government New South Wales. Prior to that, he was with Parks and Wildlife, and he was at the time executive or the director of Sport and Rec when we had the Olympics in 2000. So a very experienced person, lives just out here at Hutney. So it's a very, very, very experienced members of the community that we have on that committee, with the chairman from Bathurst, Bill Gahuli from out at near Huntley. So I'd encourage you at any times that you'd like to go to one of those meetings, please come along. It's only probably about half an inch or an inch to read each time. Ask your questions.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm going to put that motion now. I think we've heard enough about audit and risk management. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. We move on to section 3, the general reports. We have some requests for financial assistance. Now, I'd like to address these separately. And to start with, I would like to move an amendment combining the first two motions. So we have put forward tonight two donations in relation to the Orange Show Society. Now, the Orange Show is coming up soon, and I believe that we do need to show support for our show society. It's a family-friendly event. It's a time of drought when our farmers and our livestock particularly are doing it tough. And for Orange City Council to show some support greater than the hire of toilets for $850, I think would be appropriate. And I would like to move that we make a donation of $5,000 to Orange Show Society for the Orange Show for 2019.
Second.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr Mayor. Are there any further discussions regarding the Show Society and proposed donation of $5,000, which is different to what's written in your papers? Councillor Turner.
I asked the question where, if this was approved, where would the funding come from?
Great question. I might defer that one to the staff.
We'll put forward a variation at the next council meeting to the budget to cover the funds if council approves.
Can you say that again?
Councillor Duffy would like that repeated, Mr Burdak.
We'll put forward a variation, proposal, recommendation to council to cover the additional funds over the amount that's currently available.
I'll support this, but I take this that if we want $5,000 donations for causes around town, we just put a variance in the budget from here on.
Question.
Interpretation.
My question.
Councillor Miletto.
I obviously want to support it, but what I'd like to know is obviously where it's coming, where the money's going to come from, the variance. So I'd be moving a motion that we defer any vote until such time as we're made aware of where the money's coming from.
Why couldn't we, the first two, like we're talking about $850 and whatever, could we resolve to
Leave it at $850?
No, resolve to support that, but then bring back something with the extra donation that you're talking
I'll
about.
second that as an amendment.
Yeah, I think that's
That's a force.
Oh, we've got a foreshadowed amendment of some description. Excellent.
The thing is, foreshadowed amendment is to go with the 850 and to bring it. But the first amendment is that we defer it and bring a report.
So, Councillor McRae, have you actually asked the Show Society if they want $5,000 or did they request it?
Have.
The question was asked of me. I'd be happy to take the opportunity to say, no, I haven't contacted them. I have read the papers in which they've put in two submissions. One is for $5,005 for stables required for the equestrian events. The other, well, it says $850, but inclusive of GST, it's a little over $900, and that would be for the hire of toilet facilities. And as we're aware, our showground facilities are not pristine. They could do with some work. So obviously the stables and the toilet facilities are both additional facilities needed for them to run the show they want.
If we do defer this, why don't we ask what they're going to spend it for, how they'd spend it?
We could do that. They have already submitted, like many other groups, including, if I recall, I think Rob Bartlett was an author who put together a book of the history of Orange, which Council unanimously supported as something which was of value to the Orange community. My argument here, and I acknowledge there is a deferral and a foreshadowed motion, but we do have a community event of which we keep saying we want to run family-friendly drought recognition events. This is one of such. It brings many people to Orange, and I believe it would be a great opportunity for Orange City Council, us here, to show our support as we have done for other worthy causes in the last year. Of course, I'm only but one of the 12, and my vote will not... I beg your pardon, Councillor Taylor?
Said there'll be plenty of requests coming forward.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Miletto.
I'm happy to withdraw my amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Miletto.
If I may, first of all, what they want it for is written in the minutes. You don't need to have any further talks with Mr Naylor. He's wrote in here what he wants it for. That's toilets, stables, number one. Number two...
Is it a point of order?
Yeah, a point of order.
Right.
Order. I mean, the mayor is telling us now it's in the minutes. That's fine. I take it. The point of order and clarification is that wouldn't it resolve the issue as point one be that we approve the donation request of the Orange Show Society for the stable hire for the Orange Show? Wouldn't that be the same thing? Because that's what we're told the monetary value is.
Point of order should be ruled on then in what manner would you say that one? Advisor?
I'd like a clarification what the point of order is, because all I was talking...
I'm seeking some support.
Motion, I was just going to speak to my motion.
I'm just asking, is that covered in point one?
Well, clarification sought.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Right, so are you happy with that, Mr Mayor, to continue speaking as you were?
Councillor Taylor's
was covered in point one, that's all.
It's not covered in point one as written there.
No, but I'm saying if it was reversed and approved, it would be the same monetary...
It could, however, that was not the motion that I brought to the meeting.
I'm sure the shadowed motion says that we're going to approve it.
Well, I'll have a point of order because I'm on my feet and I'm just speaking as a seconder of it. That is order. So I can speak to it. Vote it down and do what you like. You can put up an amendment if you like, but at the moment we don't have an amendment. I like what some people were tossing around, but I'll speak to amendment. But look, I think in this case for the toilets, I'm at $850. With the other money for the stabling that they're talking about, I did talk to Taylor about this. I think we've made this decision as a council a few years back that we were going to try and make sure that we maintain the showgrounds out there and have a show. Build a very, very substantial pavilion out there, wishing to hopefully get some kitchen facilities into and toilet blocks on that, but they're not there at the moment. And I just think that this is worthwhile supporting show. I've had time and a hard time, and I certainly would like to see in 50 years go back to what it used to be. I may be dreaming, But in fact, I do know a lot of shows, and I was listening to ABC last week when they did have to cancel a show a couple of weeks ago at Cobar. One from the community in the area who said they really want to have their show at Cobar just to have that day out, the opportunity to go to the show. You look in Orange now, the amount of children that are tied up with the pony club, other than equestrian events, I think there'll be an increase in around, as they are out at the Powick Park with the pony club. So I think it's worthwhile until they've in fact such times that they've got stables out. I've got stables at the moment. We did have. They were knocked down, that's where the pavilion is. Yeah. The stables, that's where they used to put trotting meetings, and other ones they had them along there where the pavilion went. No one knocked down, there are no stables for horses. Now, people at a show with their horses, they wash them up and fluff them up and plait their tails and do all sorts of things to look nice to go out into the various events. Stable of horses. So I just think it's worth giving them some support until such times we've got stables there.
Sorry.
Councillor Hamling.
I'm going to withdraw my shadow amendment, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hamling. Councillor Nugent.
Can I just seek clarification? In relation to applicant 107, it says that it's ineligible because it's a second application in this, as the other application below. So does that refer to application 108 for the $850? So we're approving the $850, which makes the application for the $5,005 ineligible?
That would be correct. Through the quirk of the processing system, the one that's in first is considered the first one, and under the rules that staff apply, which I have discussed with relevant staff on a number of occasions, in this case, that is the result that there is a recommendation to approve the lesser as it was received first, and the greater.
Been put in the other way around?
We don't deal with hypotheticals, Councillor Nugent. Okay. But I'll see whether the staff have anything further to add on that.
Oh, look, the maximum amount available under the funds is $2,000, so the $5,000 was always going to be.
So if we were to approve this 5,000, and I'm not sure whether we're actually approving your motion.
That is the motion. I think the only one on the table at the moment is for $5,000.
So is that approving applicant 107? Is that what your motion effectively does? In which case it does set a precedent because it above the maximum allowable under that.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent. The precedent was set with the Rob Bartlett donation made a number of months ago, so I don't think it's actually groundbreaking.
Point of clarification, Madam Chair. So where the amendment is stating that we donate an amount that is in fact $3,000 over policy.
That is correct, Councillor Taylor.
Well, what's the point of having policy?
We are the council, and I believe that we are the people in this room who are able to make the decisions relating to the fiscal decisions of this council.
That may be the case, and as Councillor Nugent has pointed out, it is a precedent, Madam Chair, and precedents, of course, are points that are taken all the time. So I would imagine anyone with a worthwhile cause, a significant sum of money from here on, when we have policies in place, can do that and simply argue that it's a good cause.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, and I do look forward to the review of the donations policy for the next financial year, which should provide us some fantastic guidance for the future. I look forward to that for the future. Councillor Prevotera.
Just vote against the motion for the simple reason it provides two precedents. One, as said, over the $2,000. The second is over. It's actually double dipping, which under our present policy doesn't allow. And also on a third reason, it's financially responsible to keep donating money without knowing where it's coming from and what effect it has on budget. I've done it in the past, and I'm not comfortable with keep doing it. That's a simple reason. That money's got to come from somewhere.
Thank you, Councillor Prevotera. Councillor Turner.
Chair, seek advice from the General Manager. Now, we're talking about money and it's getting a little bit messy. As a patron of the Orange Show Society, should I declare an interest?
I don't think patron puts you on the executive of the Show Society, so the answer's no.
Just in case?
I do think we've had fantastic, robust discussion regarding this donation. If there's no further, I think it's just time to put the motion. The motion is, and I will read it for the benefit, or did the staff want to read it? This is that, 1, a donation of $5,000 be made to the Orange Show Society for the Orange Show 2019. All in favour? Against? Motion is lost. We now move on to item 3, recommendation that the General Manager's approval of $600 in-kind donation made to the Orange City Rugby Club for field marking for the Orange Rugby 10s be ratified. Thank you, Councillor Nugent. Seconder? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Munro. I think his hand went up first.
It wasn't under 11s.
Any discussion? All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. And item 4, that a donation of $1,760 be made to the Orange Aboriginal Medical Service from general donations and emergent funding for the purchase of a rainwater tank, a supported project for building a bush tucker garden.
Move the recommendation.
I think Councillor Hamling was first, Councillor Taylor was second. Thank you. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair. Is this an issue for the state government, or is it? Where we're getting into the state government at the moment with all these other things.
Mark,
I don't mind supporting it. I don't mind supporting it. But I'm just worried about whether it is under our jurisdiction.
I'm going to try and answer that. I'm not sure there's a policy line that you can draw. So Indigenous medical services are funded by the Commonwealth and by the state government. And so it would be
We'll do a lot of good, Scott. Yeah.
Call for councillors to decide whether or not it's appropriate for the Aboriginal Medical Service to go back to the Commonwealth or state, or whether it sees this as sitting outside its direct health role, because as I understand it, it's a rainwater tank for a community garden, which might be seen to fall more within the community space and therefore the council, as opposed to the provision directly of health services.
Then our discretion to fund this one if we.
So may I ask, would this also be similar to where schools, for example, set up kitchen gardens and seek donations from council?
I'm happy to support it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. So any further discussion on that item? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. And I've been recommended to go back to item 2. Should we go back to item 2, gentlemen?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
I've been recommended that under the procedures we can do so. So we have recommendation 2 that a donation of $850 be made to the Orange Show Society from emergent funding for toilet hire for the Orange Show, the 11th, 12th May 2019. Councillor Nugent, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Finance Policy Committee meeting. Oh, Councillor Miletto.
Thought you would be more observant. Yeah.
It's been a long meeting. This is probably 10 times as long as the finance meeting usually takes.
Just a question arising from the donations graph with regards to the wood and heating bank vouchers. I'm just wondering, through question to Director Mr. Burdick, are you able to provide an update as to how that's travelling? I know the weather is starting to get cooler. Whether there's been a demand or any inquiry with regards to that?
With your permission, Chair, I might actually defer to Mr. Maunder, who is not here.
Checking to see if my microphone's on. So we've run an express of interest process for providers of wood in the Orange region. We had one response that closed last week, so we're speaking to them. The difficulty in about the mechanics of how we how we go about determining who should receive wood under that program is something we've worked with. I spoke to Uniting about a process that we might be able to adopt. I recently spoke to Care, who run the food service at Glenroy, for people to come along and collect items. About setting up a process where people who could fill in an application form to that facility as some sort of process with which we could vet applications. So they were taking that to a board meeting tonight, so I'll hear back on that. Had some difficulties in working out how people might be able to donate wood to appropriate or otherwise. Whether the operators of those sites are happy for people to turn up. It might be season, it might be grain. So there hasn't been a great deal of enthusiasm. We're currently exploring ways with which our tree crew might be able to, when we remove suitable wood, make that wood available wood bank, because that was the intent. At a wood bank that people could either donate wood to, our operations, then be made available to the. There's a couple of mechanics around it. We'll have something in place for this season.
Thank you.
It's still being developed, but we just to give you a bit of an overview of some of the.
That answer your question, Councillor Murdo?
Thank you.
We wait for more information on the progress of the wood bank. Any further matters related to the Finance Committee meeting? I will call it at time of 8. My glasses, I need new glasses. 8:17 p.m. and I call on Councillor Nugent to conduct the Services Policy Committee.
Thanks, Councillor McRae. I'd like to open the Services Policy Committee meeting of 2nd of April 2019 with the time being 8:18. Does any councillor have any pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interests or less than significant non-pecuniary interests in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? I'll take that as a no. Moving to item 2.1, the minutes of the Ageing and Access Community Committee meeting. Moved by Councillor Duffy, thank you. Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion on this item? I'd just like to note that a reported item, or under recommendation 2, item 3.12, the report be prepared to update council regarding the Age Friendly Forum. I presume that's the report at item 5.5 tonight in the meeting. So thank you for the prompt attention to that recommendation. Any other discussion, comments? Otherwise, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against? The motion is carried. Turning to item 2.2, which are the minutes of the Community Safety and Crime Prevention Committee, moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by, there was a race there, but I think it might have been Councillor Romano. Anyone wanting to discuss any issues in this item?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just a quick one of the questionnaire that we have out at the moment regarding residents can comment about crime in the city or where they feel unsafe or whatever else they want to comment, because I'd encourage that the residents do take the time to fill that out, because it does impact on, we give the results to the police and, you know, they might step up more patrols. And the other thing is also grant funding for CCTV such as. So I would encourage residents to fill that in and let us know what they think, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Councillor Hamling. Is that, can I just clarify, is that open for a specific period of time, or is that sort of ongoing?
I have to ask the
director?
Director, that's what they call it.
I was just going to look. Closing date, I'll have to come back to you. I'm not sure again. Cool.
And can I just ask then, sorry, Councillor Munro, but is that being advertised? That's
Going through social media at the
Social
moment.
media?
It's all
Right.
over those sort of airwaves.
fantastic. And as councillors, I'm sure we will be spreading the word as well. Councillor Munro.
I was just wondering if we could, now the election's finished, all that rubbish is out of the road, if we could get a petition up to get some more police in Orange. We spoke about lack of numbers here, the inability of officers to get there on time because there's only a couple there and they've got to pull in reinforcements. I just asked the question, can our council, or how could we do it, that we could start a petition, get 10,000 votes, 10,000 signatures to give our local member to take the state government.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Munro. Good point. Yeah, I'm not sure about whether council...
We can look into that, bring back...
Should be, but I was just, the General Manager would just like to comment on that matter.
So prior to the election at a council meeting, council discussed that once the election was over, that we'd seek to take a delegation to the new police minister. So we're going to follow up on that. I suggest we take that one on notice until we see the outcome of meeting that we're proposing with the new minister.
Mr. Chair, I do understand.
Yes, Councillor Henry.
We did have a bit of a win with some police numbers. Is it my?
I believe that is the case.
Yeah,
there was
so
an
it's
announcement
not
just during the election
it's
campaign.
not the full complement that we wanted, but it was
6.
It's a start. It's a start. So yeah, that motion about going down to the police minister was one I put up, and we hadn't heard back. And now that we've got a new police minister, we'll see how we go.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on this item? Otherwise, we'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those against, the motion is carried. Item 2.3, the minutes of NAIDOC Week Community Committee extraordinary meeting of the 28th of February, moved by Councillor Munro, seconded by Councillor Privatera. Any discussion on this item? I'd just like to say that I did attend that extraordinary meeting where we were talking about the bids for the different activities, and it looks like it's shaping up to be another fantastic program again this year for NAIDOC Week. And again, as always, I'd encourage all councillors to support the activities when they do that week and the events that are part of that week, because it is a very important part on our calendar. All right. If there's no other discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, the motion is carried. Item 2.4.
I'll move those, Mr. Chair.
The minutes of the Cultural Heritage Community Committee, moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor McRae. Sorry, Councillor Duffy. Any discussion on that?
Just a couple. Look, we have the Orange Heritage Awards every 2 years now, and this year is those awards. If you know anyone, there's a number of categories, or you can suggest anyone. There's some forms down on the front desk. Flip them a form and try and get them to nominate, because it is quite prestigious to win one of the things, and I know there's a lot of places around town actually put them up on their business or their B&B or whatever it be. In saying that, it is also very, very good to see at the moment major work being undertaken on the Royal Hotel, painting it. Probably everyone's noticed that. It'll quite thing. And had a bit of a sneak preview inside the Myers site the other day, and certainly inside's a lot different than it used to be, but it's going along quite well. And I had given a look at what they do plan to do at the front, and that's quite exciting. And I think next year or towards the end of this year, Summer Street itself, that part and along here, will look quite different to what it looks at the moment.
Thanks, Councillor Kidd. Yeah, just on the Cultural Heritage Awards, they're on Friday the 10th of May. Do we know yet as to the venue?
Country League.
It is going to be Country League, not Live Better? Not... Okay, Country League is the venue.
The reason I think it Live Better at the moment, as you know, there's a couple of things. It still may be there, but Better's up for auction, sale, by auction, but I think they'd take offers beforehand, and thought it was a bit difficult in talking with staff. venue. But certainly, I think the one after that, we should have it there. It'd be fantastic on the veranda.
Yeah. Okay, Friday the 10th of May at Country League. Any other discussion on this item? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. And finally, 2.5, the minutes of the Lucknow Community Committee meeting, moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Privatera. Any discussion on this item?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Nugent. I've got a question regarding the Wentworth Mine Picnic Day.
Yes.
And I just wanted to find out a little bit more about it, assuming it will be family friendly, and wondering where the funding is coming from for this particular event.
Family friendly funding. I'll sure which director I should be directing this to.
Chair of the Lucknow Committee.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regards to funding, this is a community-type project. It's championed by the good folk out there at Lucknow with the assistance of Orange City Council by way of promotion. As a result of the meeting which we had last time, we moved that Orange City Council assist with the publication of promotional material to assist the people out there. That's what we're doing. The day itself is predominantly run by the Lucknow people themselves, and we assist them on a non-needs basis type setup. Certainly is important to the community of Lucknow. I mean, it's been running, I think, from memory since, my understanding is since about 1880, and the history of it was the manager of the mining who decided there was a great opportunity to get the families of the miners as a get-together type environment. And as a result of that, the Lucknow community have continued that tradition over a number of years. Now where it's got to the stage where it's a picnic day, which also incorporates a number of events, which includes the opening of the Wentworth mine and allows for tours and tours around the Lucknow precinct itself. So it certainly is an important day for the people out there, and it's an opportunity for them to showcase their little village.
Thank you, Councillor Miletto. And that's on the 27th of April, I believe, Sunday the 27th of April, and again encourage councillors to spread the word. And
Can I
also
just
to
ask a
attend if
question
they
of
can.
Councillor Miletto on that? On the 27th of April, will the pub be open? Pretty important.
Why is it
Because
important?
inside the pub, well, one of the reasons, because I've been to a number of those over the years, in the back dining room, that they have the whole range of photos similar to we have here that show all the mine shafts. And number two, interesting place to go, but I noticed it's on the market, and I don't know if it's changed hands yet, is Mamehead, what was the mine manager's house opposite the pub. That was Newman who started these picnics at Mamehead. It's on the market at the moment. I don't know.
I can't answer your question, but there was more interest in whether you were going to spread the love and go out there and do a bit of poetry reading or a bit of karaoke or something along those lines.
My word.
It'll attract a crowd.
But it's a bit hard if the pub's closed.
Well, I think we'll open up just for that, just for the karaoke. All right. Any other discussion? Councillor McRae, did your...
That answered my question.
Happy with that answer? Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The motion is carried. And I believe that is the end of the Services Policy Committee when we're shutting it, in Councillor Hamling's words, at 8:28 tonight. And I'll hand back to the Mayor to resume the council meeting. Thank you.
Right, councillors, items under 4. First of all, we have item 4.1, a notice of motion awning Max Hazelton Aero Centre. Motion by Councillor Sam Romano and Councillor Mario Privatera. Councillor Romano.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, the motion that I'd like to put up with Councillor Mario Privatera, it's to give some provision for some assistance to the Orange Aero Club by applying for a DA and constructing an airside awning to Max Hazelton Aero Centre patient transfer room. This came about, it's self-explanatory, but it came about one evening when I was invited out there to the Aero Club. One of the ambulance officers said that patients need to be undercover when they're waiting to enter the aircraft. So they're on a stretcher, obviously, they're injured or they're ill. And the funny thing is there's no awning on the air side of the building. So it's not a big cost, and I'm hoping that councillors will support this. Apparently they've asked for this for a few years too, I was also told. So it's not a big cost. I think it's about $10,000, and I'm hoping that the councillors will support it.
Councillor Nugent.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to support and speak in favour of it, and well done to the councillors for putting up this motion. I do have just a question. It's great that we can accommodate with an existing budget. Is that within this year's budget as opposed to next year's budget? In terms of budget bids for next year versus this year's budget, can we accommodate in this year's?
That's correct. For this year's budget. Yeah.
Right.
Any other speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just a point of clarification, if the director could or someone could help me out here with regards to, and I'm going to support the resolution with that, but again, I look at the situation, Aero Club or receive any funding from the Air and Federal Health Department or the Health New South Wales Health as regards to hire any rooms or any of that type of thing? Is it our jurisdiction again? Clarification of that.
I'd have to take that on notice. I do know that members of the Aero Club do support the transfer operation. So there's a number of members that are registered nurses, 2 currently working, 1 retired, that help with that facility. I think they volunteer their time.
Do they receive funding at all from the government at all?
I think the receiving aircraft receives funding for the transport of the...
It's good to hear that there's volunteers there. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm happy to support it.
Councillor Miletto.
Happy to support the motion. I guess the only question which I have is with regards to where's that money coming from, because my understanding on the times that I've chaired that committee in the absence of Councillor Romano is that all that money is already allocated, that grant money. So I'm just wondering where $10,000 is going to come from, because I know that when I spoke about security cameras out there, there was the question couldn't be answered at that point in time because the money had already been allocated. I guess, and although I'm supporting the motion, what I would have liked to have seen was this issue being put on the plan for further discussion with members of the committee meeting themselves, so they had the opportunity to discuss it between themselves. I understand, yes, it is a priority, but there is an action plan for a reason. I believe that perhaps this consideration should have been given to this item being included on that action plan and discuss with all the members of the committee. That's the reason why we have committees, is so everybody can have a say. But I do support the recommendation. I just would have liked to have seen it included in the action plan for further discussion with those members who give up their time to make those important decisions.
Councillor Miletto.
Through the Chair, if I may, I believe there were some savings made in the changeover of the tractor mower situation out there, and that's the indicated area that the money will be coming from.
Right.
Thank you. Again, I wasn't aware of that, hence the reason why.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a comment? This is absolutely fantastic news, because I remember when I first came onto council, my young fella had to get flown to Sydney, and I can remember how far it's come since then, because that was just on the tarmac. There was no sheds, there was no Max Hazelton Aero Centre, and this is really fantastic news, because when it's raining and in the middle of winter and the snow's coming in or whatever, what it used to be there was just the ambulance drove on the tarmac and the patients used to get full brunt of the weather elements. But this is great news.
Right, Romano.
I'd like to close the debate, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Just to answer Councillor Miletto, you probably might be right, Councillor Miletto. You've been chairing the airport committee, because I haven't been able to get there. I'm surprised nobody mentioned it to you, and I'm sorry that happened. But as a councillor, I was approached to get this put forward. And I've done my job as a councillor, and I didn't do it to disrespect the committee, you or anybody else. So I put it forward. It's here on the table. If you support it, I'll be grateful, and so will they. If you don't support it, I'll leave it up to you.
I didn't say I didn't support it.
Look, I think I'll put the motion. All in favour?
I've closed it.
Thank you. 4.2, notice of motion, level 4 water restrictions. Councillor Mario Prevatera and Councillor Sam Romano wish to move the following notice of motion. Thank you.
To amend the council permit to use handheld hoses up to half an hour a day during allowed periods under level 4 and level 5 water restriction. As Councillor Taylor rightly suggested, under level 3, allow handheld hoses, a more efficient way of distributing water in the right spot than buckets. So I just think that we should carry that across to level 4 and level 5.
Councillor Prevatera.
Yeah. Could I ask the mover and seconder also, and I'm picking back up on the works report with the water, and it's stated in that about the car washing on lawns and so forth, but I'd ask the mover and seconder if they'd also consider for car washing for people a lot of people around town use pressure cleaners. And if you've ever used a pressure cleaner and try and fill a bucket up, it takes all day. They're an extremely efficient way of using water and effective. So I'd ask that if the seconders would consider adding that in there, that for the provision of car washing. Okay. It goes back, as I say, it goes back to the report that was contained in the Works Committee. I think referred to it there.
So mover and the seconder's permission, they've both indicated they're happy with that, Jeff, for car washing. I agree with you totally.
Just a quick question. So the half hour will be on odds and evens?
No, it's on the Wednesday and
Sunday.
Wednesday and Sunday. When we move to the next level, instead of being odds and evens, that it's 2 days. Yeah. Okay.
That's the quick. AM to 12 AM, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Don't have to worry though, Mr Mayor. Anzac Day's coming.
That's a question about soaker hoses. Now, I've never had much to do with soaker hoses, but I've got one in the last month or so. Used it on one of the gardens, or my wife used it on one of the gardens.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Clear the tank fairly quickly. I mean, how much do they use?
Not much. If you have a look on the hose, when you purchased it for your wife, it would have on the hose how many litres per hour drips out of it. But if you've lost that, if you contact...
I'll go out to Bunnings tomorrow morning and have a look, and I'll report back to you, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, and when you turn the tap on, it comes out of those little holes, little drippers. It drips out so many litres per hour. And if you multiply that out by the length of the hose, that's how much per hour.
I'll also go out to Bunnings and buy a calculator.
Okay. Everyone's familiar with the motion. All in favour? Against? Thank you. 4.3, that's that later notice of motion there. Costume Parks and Gardens upgrade from Councillor Taylor and myself.
Second.
Councillor Taylor. Yeah, thanks, mate.
Yep.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I support the motion, Mr Mayor. I mean, it's an emotive issue, and I know we've in the budget an allocation of 250,000 extra, but I really do think that we need to do this audit. Is a large talking point around town, particularly around TBD. Missed out on funding for any federal funding for the CBD. That's obviously going to put that project back. So I think it's very important that we do. But the amount of dead trees and so forth around town, so I think we need. I think also one of the questions I'd like to ask: have storms and trees are storm damage. Who actually does the assessment on the tree, whether the tree stays or goes? Council staff? Is it trained council staff or is it contractors? Council staff. So it's always council staff. The contractors don't do it. Clarification. But yeah, Mr Mayor, I support it. Particularly the last part there, as far as pruning of the trees, potential energy. All we need to say is have a look at the lone pine. That's all we need to say.
Thanks. If I may, sorry, Councillor. Look, the reason for motion was, I'm very attached to this and I've been on about this for a number of years, but the longer that we don't do something, the more it's going to cost to actually do something. There are many of the trees are badly stressed, and you don't have to go too far in various directions. Councillor Taylor, I just over in Byng Street, and you look this way from over in McLaughlin Street, lovely line of trees, and there's 2 dead branches hanging out over the street. Now, if they come down, be on some vehicles. And there is a number of those trees there fairly stressed. Now, if I'll get you in a moment, Ms. Miletto. Just have a rest for a second. Gotcha, you're next. If you look at the tree in front of the post office, there's another very good example for you at the moment. The one right in front of the post office, it's probably 80% dead. And 80% dead tree don't look too flash, by the way. It's like having half your teeth missing in the front of your head. That's the only thing people remember. Now, with a lot of our garden beds, and it's due to lack of resources on the staff, we need more resources put into our garden beds. Some of the garden beds, like in the front of this building, look good, but have a look across the street, nothing in the beds. Number of the blisters have got nothing growing in them but weeds. Some roundabouts, fantastic, and others not so flash at all, got weeds. And if you look at our entrances into our town and compare them with Bathurst and Dubbo, they won't hold a light to them now like they used to. If we look at replacement of that, it's not a simple task. It is an expensive task. So I think that we've really got to look at our plantings, our planning, and adequately resource what we're going to do. And the last part of that's with essential energy. Now, seriously, all the time, the amount of people that say, have a look at that, and you have to agree. You try and say, oh no, it's nice, but if you would not prune a tree in your own yard like that, because if you had a barbecue, everyone would be saying, what the hell's happened here? And I know that it has to be done. If you look at the trees, and I'm not saying all trees, but a lot of the trees, and I'll give you an example, if you go up Coronation Drive, they're evergreen oaks. They could be just pruned across on the other side, and they could even be left lower than the power lines. They'd look very smart and very nice, and it'd be very easy when they're coming up again, just go over the top of them. You've still got a reasonable shaped tree. I've looked at some out on going out towards Bathurst Road, that they're terribly displaced. There's no doubt in the wide world we've got tons of wood one side of the tree, and with the wind from the opposite direction, that tree is going to be quite vulnerable to splitting and breaking off, and then we haven't got a tree, so it'd be better off pruned back where they possibly can. I thought about it and I thought, oh, well, no, might be a rule. So about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a look in some other areas where they're pruned, and they are pruned. They're evened off and given a bit of shape back around them, and I think perhaps we should be asking, can we actually have that done? Because they'll be up in the air and they'll be in their scissor lifts or whatever. Mr. Revatera would know what the machine is. Whatever machine they're actually in, bucket or whatever, bucket on a stick, they're up in the air anyhow, and it wouldn't be a huge job to actually shape it. So I'm asking for your support in that, because we are known as the Garden City. But if your garden doesn't look all that flash, you can't call yourself the Garden City.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, you're sorry.
Do I have to declare an interest as being an employee of Century Energy?
No, I don't believe so.
Because you put it out to tree services, contractors do it.
Contractors do it?
Yeah.
I thought I saw him up there supervising when they were hacking that tree.
You don't need to declare an interest, but declare embarrassment. Bathroom. I've got to go to the bathroom.
Sorry.
It's a question arising from what Councillor Taylor said with regards to the lone pine tree. Driving past it on the weekend, and it looks like a giant bonsai. But I'm just wondering, what was planted? Was the tree planted and then the lines went over the top of the lines there, and somebody decided to plant a tree underneath the line? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
The lines would have been there when the
no. tree was there before those lines went across there, I can tell you that. But in discussions that we've had with the authorities, they are planning to put that line either underground or place it towards the east, so we won't have those problems with it again. But it does remind me we need to chase them up. I will say one thing, that they put some work into giving it a haircut and making it look better. Well,
it looks like a giant bonsai.
I don't think that's happened, actually. Because I reckon it looks terrible, and everyone I see says to me, what in the hell happened to it?
Before have we got staff that could give that, try and clean it up a bit?
In this case, I would perhaps ask the General Manager, can we have a yarn with your staff? And I think would actually.
It'll be better. Maybe it'd be a good thing just for Anzac Day to try and make it a little bit more.
I'll have a talk with the General Manager tomorrow.
Don't you like it?
And he can talk to our tree.
Do you like it?
Arborist, he can talk to our arborist and see if we can do a bit. I think it definitely can. Because the person that come in there.
Like the original Lone Pine, it was in the back.
Well, it looks like it's been bombed. That's the news.
Right. Look, I just quickly, it sounds like we got sort of broad support for this motion, and I'm happy to support it. I'd be interested to see what the cost estimates are. In my wish list for the budget, I had a 10% increase in the budget for the Parks and Gardens upgrade, and this may very well achieve budget, and this may very well achieve that. So that would be fantastic. I'm also very keen on the entrance signage, which we've discussed at length in the Parks, Trees and Waterways Committee, and there's some exciting plans there, and I'd love to see those implemented. So on that basis, happy to support this motion.
Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, it's not uncommon that I have never comment about these things down here, the garden beds. It's also made a comment about the trees. I think that as regards to the lone pine tree, I think it's probably something that we should treat delicately and have a discussion with the RSL about.
That has happened on 2 occasions, and the last time being 1 week ago.
And as I said, I've got some photos of Afghanistan. It looks like some of those trees have been absolutely blown apart, and that's what it looks like. And it looks awful coming into town. And maybe they might look at the situation, go back over there and get another one replanted. I know it's not nothing lives forever. But the classic for me is the one in front of the post office. I mean, it's got a few suckers coming out of the top of the trunk, and the rest of it's dead. But we've pruned it. The dead tree. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me, and I think it was an absolute shocker. But I do welcome the extra funds that come into the budget to this. It's badly needed. We run around and say how great a city we are as far as tidy towns and all those type of things there. Well, let me tell you, I mean, my own opinion is if I drive down, as I said before, you drive down in through Bathurst, it looks a lot better to us and more friendly to drive through.
Look, can I just finish the debate by saying I know this will go back to the service level, and I know the directors will be working on that in the paper to come back to councils, where we've got to consider the service level that we give towards our parks and gardens and street trees, and that'll be a decision that all councils have to make, because certainly we're getting bigger, got more sporting grounds, we've got more street trees to look after in new suburbs and so forth, and we'll have to look at our service level that we're willing to support. And if we can't support it, don't believe we've got the funding to support it, we have to think seriously about what we actually do. Okay, all in favour?
Aye.
Against, thank you.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor.
Now we've voted, I got more information on the line. Redirecting of that power lines will start in 2 weeks. I've got the plans on my desk.
Send the bill to me.
Well done. Move on to general reports. First of all, we've got 5.1 as a report from the Deputy Mayor on the Centrock Board meeting and JOC meeting held on the 28th of February.
Move it.
Move Councillor Romano, seconded Councillor Duffy. Councillor Prevoto. Yeah, you've got the...
sorry,
Councillor Mileto, sorry.
No, just a question. I thank Councillor Romano for the detailed report. Just with regards to, under the heading planning, it's got an update of priority projects of the Central Western Arana Regional Plan for New South Wales Government Planning and Environmental were provided. What type of things are we looking at? What are the priorities?
Okay, so
well, General Manager will have that privy to all.
I could answer it for you too, but the General Manager is the most appropriate person.
Okay, so the state government has done a regional plan, multi-agency plan, covers off on all the different agencies. I'm actually on the implementation committee for the local government part.
Congratulations.
Not that thought. So it drags in things like it might well be social services might be needed in Gilgandra. So there's a process of looking at that, evaluating that and trying to prioritise it in a regional plan. The government. Other things like to help with the land use planning, groups source funding to do a sort of an umbrella agricultural plan over all the changes that are occurring with climate and worldwide and continuous transport of produce. What the sort of key economic clusters will be around and where the opportunities are for value add across the agricultural piece. So there's lots and lots of different elements of it. I can circulate what's on the to-do list, which is easy. Yeah, another one is the Southern Lights project. That's a Centroc project that's being supported by the State Implementation Group for our region. And that's to swap out a lot of the
old lights.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's mercury vapour lights to LEDs, which will save a lot of electricity and will also last longer and perform better. So I can circulate the to-do lists and you'll see it's right across a lot of things, right across a lot of areas. So Centroc plays a role in that. I'm on that committee as Centroc, and it's do periodic assessment of how the whole thing's happening because a lot of it's vested in the agencies or Centroc's picked up a few things.
Yeah, thank you. I'd be interested in reading that.
Okay, Councillor News.
Just a quick follow-up question as well. I was going to ask about the Southern Lights project, so thank you for that. The electricity procurement that councils give consideration. Sorry, page 30. Yeah, councils give consideration to participation in renewable energy power purchase agreement. I'm just interested in how that process will occur. I presume each individual council will make a decision, and that's a decision that we as a council will make.
At some point or another, the council's going to have to prioritise what it does. There is a vast number of projects we could do. For argument's sake, if the grant funding doesn't arrive from the Southern Lights project, we may well want to pull that on ourselves. So at some point or another, when we get some stability in what all the projects are, what the cost order is, coming back to council with a recommendation. So it might well be, we pick up a portion of the Southern Lights or we go for A's on other council facilities. But we're going to have to get to that point of prioritisation of projects because we pick them all up.
Can I just say what's quite important that too is that report that was given to us by Jenny Bennett, the CEO, is a very good summary of everything that's happened in a month that she presented to council, and all council's got a copy of, and it is on the website. It's on the website. That's a good summary of all the activities. But I think one of the interesting ones is in the area of procurement. The incredible savings as working as a group of councils that have had in areas such as training, whole range of things that councils have to buy, been extraordinary. But I think the most important thing about Centroc and the amount of councils involved is your lobbying power. You definitely have stronger lobbying power when you're going down as a group of councils to see, in fact, probably about every second or third meeting now we have it in Sydney in Parliament House. And
4 meetings a year, one's
joint organisation, sorry. They will be continuing those
group
procurement.
Centroc will become the JOC.
Mr. Mayor, I agree. A very well written report, very detailed. Couple of questions I have relate to transport, particularly in relation to the Orange Rail Action Group and some of their particular concerns. So I note that on page 24, transport infrastructure is discussed, and that first paragraph doesn't actually say what mode. So I was a little confused as to whether it was the rail, the road, or the air, as all of them would perhaps arguably the connection between Central West, New South Wales and Western Sydney. I also wonder if anyone who attended the meeting could inform us. We had on the 4th of December, which was prior to this particular meeting, the announcement from the Premier and the Deputy Premier regarding faster rail. And since this meeting, we've had on the 26th of March, the member for Calare, Assistant Minister, I think it says on this paragraph, Member for Calare, Assistant Minister to the Deputy Prime Minister, the Honourable Andrew Gee, who announced $8 million for a faster rail study. So I guess I'm interested in what approach Centroc or the joint organisation is taking, but more importantly, how can Orange City Council, or more importantly, how can the Orange Rail Action Group be part of the discussions and that coalition of the willing in terms of being able to get action, particularly on rail connections? That fast rail network has been talked about along the Western Route, Lithgow, Bathurst, Orange and Parkes. What's the best way to actually get it happening?
It's money.
First part of that question, transport infrastructure discussion is primarily about the road. The Safe Swift link, referring to the road link over the Blue Mountains. The second part of that paragraph is around the repair program, which is a roads program. In terms of the priorities of Centroc, I can provide those to Council. There's been any number of projects assessed and put through a multi-criteria analysis for Centroc to give its regional imprimatur on. The transport piece has been about, the rail transport piece has been around a number of issues, mostly for us focused on getting a timetable to access rail transport through Bathurst. A lot of focus on the benefits of the Laney to Mondrel freight. Centroc is certainly aware of the aspirations of the Orange Rail Action Group. Technical level, there's some big challenges in the route between Bathurst and Orange, but they are aware of it. Has been included as higher priority as the other two items I mentioned.
So in regards to the recent announcement from our federal minister regarding the faster rail study specific to one of, Central West being one of the routes, is there anything happening in that regarding Orange City Council or the central organisation?
Yes, Centroc will provide input to that because it's got a broader scope in terms of study to include some of the big challenges that might arise on the specific infrastructure between Bathurst and Dubbo in particular.
Can I add to that through the chair? Also, as part of the Future City program, we developed a agency reference group, and we had members of Transport for New South Wales attend that meeting, and through that, to accommodate some of the things we'd like to be doing in our CBD, they'd like to have an expanded study that would add on to the study that Orange has completed with RMS, with our traffic modelling of the city, to include other things such as rail, bus and other road transport links in and around the city that might support the Future City operation. And one of those members of Transport for New South Wales that was in attendance is also on that committee that is looking at the faster transport link through to Sydney.
Councillor Maletta.
I'd just like to also congratulate Councillor Romano for being elected to the reference group. Well done. Look forward to seeing, hearing your views on what comes out of those meetings. So congratulations for being selected as part of that reference group.
Right. For noting, all in favour?
Aye.
5.2 is the conduct of the 2020 local government election.
Move second.
All in favour?
I want to ask a question if I can. Can that be? Can Can that be changed at all in time if something came up later on that we wanted to change that?
Long lead time on this sort of stuff. I imagine we'd need to make a commitment to it before council.
All in favour? Against? Thank you. 5.3 is a change of meeting date.
Happy to move it. Second.
Councillor Hamling, second. Councillor Duffy. All in favour? Thank you. 5.4 is strategic policy review.
Move the motion.
Move Councillor Nugent. Second, Councillor McRae. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. And 5.5 is the friendly forum that's coming up in the near future out at the Environmental Learning Facility out the showground. All invited. Councillor Hamling, seconded. Who's that? Councillor Munro. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Just for a close the meeting, over the next 2 days we have a water conference here, and our water's gone in against all these other places, so who's got the best drinking water around. There's about 140 odd sponsors of this thing and people from all over the state. It's being held out at the Police Boys Club. They've been touring some of our facilities this afternoon, and they're on tomorrow. They're on Thursday, so that's great for Orange. I'd just like to congratulate anyone that was involved in any way with the two big events on the weekend, being the Bikeathon. About 1,600 riders plus families and friends. I think it'd come to about 3,000 people here certainly over 3 days, if not more. Then we had the Volcanic Mountain Run, which is sponsored by West Orange Motors and the bank. Got that right, and Orange Rotary Club handling that, and I think they had about 400 participants, including the volcanic run and the family run they had here on the 5 kilometres. And thank heavens, look, please drink lots of water. Tomorrow we are in the finals for the water quality. So if you're hanging around anywhere tomorrow, make sure you've got a glass of water in your hand or something. Thanks, Councillor Taylor.
Mr Mayor, just picking you up on the events that were on the weekend, the Cadia, the bikes and the volcanic run. It was put to me yesterday as someone who was involved, and they said it was a wonderful weekend, very successful, the whole lot, but there was a lot of overspill to Bathurst and so forth, surrounding areas for accommodation. They pointed out very clearly, and I think they made a very good point, is that these events apparently are organised outside of Orange because they're very large events and so forth, and don't locally have an event organiser. Now that doesn't necessarily mean council. That means could be for our tourism. And their only concern was that you've got two major events like that in the city on the one weekend. They were separated. You'd get a lot more benefit because you get a lot more people actually staying in the city. So is that something that we could take up with our tourist body, or can we?
Certainly can.
Because it just look, they're great events and they bring a lot of money into the city. That's wonderful, but on separate weekends, even better.
Yeah, I agree with you, Councillor Taylor, and it has been mentioned and it will be pursued, yeah, because it's a bit crazy when you have those sort of clashes. But I think probably the most important thing about it is, in me, it's interesting how you cop the flack through the media and in the social media. Orange is only food and wine. Well, look, just have a think about the events that we've had from just this year. We've had netball, we've had hockey, indoor hockey, we've had water polo, we've had this bikeathon, we had the triathlons here, we had the cricket, we had the volcanic mountain run. All of those were sporting events, every single one of them. And I don't think any of those sports are out there on the grog. Right? But I haven't seen too many people come back and say, isn't that fantastic, the amount of sporting events that we actually do get. So I think it's quite balanced. It's very, very good.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'd like to commend the council staff, because the feedback that I got at both events, that they couldn't have been any more helpful, the council staff, with the organising, anything that the event organisers wanted. I'd go along your line of the negativity that we copped about having half the road shut off the event, unbelievable. Where I think the organisers and the riders loved Robinson Park instead of Mulder Park, like finishing a lap round the velodrome, but they just thought it made it more of a central activity and all that sort of thing. So and the other thing that I wanted to draw the attention to was the Pink Day. The negativity we got for that Pink Day, I just couldn't believe negative people. It's raising money for the McGrath Foundation, and we copped it. Absolutely.
Well, I think the classic with that, it was an April Fool's joke where we had all the filming and we got national television out of it, and it went internationally for nothing. To think someone would be anyhow, but I think you can't please everybody. But the interesting one, can I just say, on the bike ride was interesting over here. The complaints about the roads being closed. Well, I was down there at 5:30. Guess what time the cyclists left?
About 1 o'clock.
People rolling around the street at 6:30, and it interfered with them getting down the street or anything. And out of the volcanic run, they're up at Towag Valley and in the park, and weren't even out on the road. I mean, I can't believe it. Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Following up from Councillor Hamling's comments about how Orange has moved forward, yourself, myself and Councillor McRae and Councillor Miletto were out at the topping off ceremony for the new Bloomfield Hospital, and it was a great evening up on the 8th floor, I think, which is going to be a garden floor. It'll all be garden up there, but it made you really proud to be part of Orange when the toll emergency helicopter came in, went past the new hospital. We're all on the top, landed on top of the base hospital. I still call it the base hospital. Below us, who would have ever thought that the helicopter would land below a building where the old drive-in used to be? So it was certainly an honour to be there with the owner of the building and Mr. Zorner, the building contractor. It certainly made me feel proud to be part of Orange. But one of the other highlights that I also noticed, looking to the north into Orange, you couldn't see Orange for trees. And I know a lot of them are suffering, but when we get all carried away about removing a tree from time to time, and we cop some flack about removing two in Post Office Lane, whether you look in from Mount Lindsay or you look in from where we were the other night, Orange still has a fair few trees, and we should keep encouraging that, especially in the new areas. I know it's difficult at the moment with the water restrictions for people to have to carry a bucket and keep the tree outside their new home alive, but we should, however we can, to encourage people to keep planting trees. It looked fantastic the other night from the top of the new Bloomfield Hospital.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you. I just want to raise the issue of, look, we just had an election recently and we've seen some new candidates returned into office, and I think our council should rightly acknowledge that fact, and we should write a congratulations letter. And especially to our former Mayor of Bathurst, Paul Toole. He's now the Minister for Regional Roads and all those type of things, which we want to be hammering with, and he has a good understanding of what actually needed for the Central West, and I think that should be good, but I think we should acknowledge that. But I just noticed that I think there's a change in the Office of Local Government. It's been disbanded and going to join forces with a couple of others. I think it's been downgraded. And it's on social media right just as we speak. This
morning. Well, you know.
Social media.
So,
you read that while you were on your school bus this afternoon. He's dropping the kids off. Between his legs.
Cultural heritage in the last.
I'm quite sure that an appropriate letter will be sent off to both our state member.
Driving the bus prunes it. Of council. I mean,
on behalf of council. Yeah, for sure.
But I'd like a report come to us about what's actually happening with the Office of Local Government and the other ones.
As soon as I'm sure the general manager, as soon as he knows anything, he'll let us know. Okay. No other business. I close the council meeting at 9:10, and thank you very, very much for your attendance. Drive safely. you.